It is an honour and a privilege to serve in the Australian Parliament. It is particularly an honour and privilege to serve and represent the agricultural industry and farmers of Australia. But that is not a privilege that I take lightly. Too often I have had complaints of the amount of regulation and legislation that is choking this country. And one of the reasons that I stand here is not to be a part of that over-regulation. There is no more important industry in Australia than agriculture, in growing the food and fibre that feeds the nation and feeds a good part of the world. Dairy is indeed an important part of that industry, and they are doing it as tough as anybody at this moment, as tough as pork producers, as tough as feedlotters, as tough as anybody who is having to pay $1 a kilo for feed, who is struggling to get water in face of a deep drought. But these are not things that can or should be solved by this legislation. I want to recognise Senator Hanson's passion and her support for this industry. It is well placed to feel passionate for this industry, for these farmers who are, as we've already talked about, doing it tough. But as I've already said, this legislation will not protect farmers. It will not protect farmers from unconscionable buying habits from supermarkets. It will not protect farmers from the actions of industry practice, of trading milk slops, of not paying a fair price. I cannot believe that the Labor Party is going to support this legislation. How tragic it is that there is only a handful of them here in the Parliament to hear this debate, to make up their own minds about what is appropriate and what is right for our very important dairy industry. Despite being Australia's third largest agricultural industry, dairy faces significant challenges, and this government knows that if left unchecked, these challenges will threaten the long-term viability of dairy production in this country. The fact is, raw milk pricing is determined by processors and incorporated into supply contracts entered into with farmers. These contracts aren't uniform. They depend on milk quality, volume supplied, timing of supply and the premiums attached to the length of a supply contract. And the reality is, it is challenging to compare milk supply agreements and contracts. And that is why we're acting on the ACCC's recommendation to introduce the Dairy Code of Conduct. Right now, industry has their opportunity to have their say. Consultation closes on the 22nd of November, and we're seeking feedback on the best form of contractual terms and pricing too. The other issue that I am most concerned about is that less than 1 month ago, Senator Hanson launched an inquiry into the Senate which seeks to assess the performance of the dairy industry since deregulation. This inquiry was to give farmers an opportunity to provide their evidence. It was an opportunity for dairy organisations, who I believe have not been deeply consulted on this, an opportunity to come and publicly explain the issues that they have. And yet we are rushing ahead with legislation which is not complete. We have had amendments to this legislation this morning. I cannot support legislation that is drafted so hastily, with unintended consequences that could potentially affect dairy farmers more adversely than the problem that we are seeking to solve. The inquiry even goes so far as to specifically address alternative approaches to supporting a viable dairy industry and the merits of tasking the ACCC to investigate how it can regulate the price of milk per litre paid by processors to farmers. While, as a Queenslander, I strongly support dairy in my state, whether it be on the tablelands, whether it be in the south-east. This is an industry that is under enormous pressure. But this bill is premature. It lacks support from industry. It is not based on fact. I particularly disagree with the comments that the National Party is not standing and fighting for farmers right across this nation. As a party, we live in regional areas. We come from these regional areas, and we speak daily to farmers and processors and producers who are all part of the agricultural supply chain. Can we do better for the industry? Of course we can. Senator Hanson named one processor in particular who I agree is not doing the right thing for their farmers, and they should be called out for it. But it has to be said that Norco, as a co-op and a genuine representative of their farmers, is doing a very good job at increasing prices, about taking supermarkets to task and increasing the amount that they are being paid for their farmers. So I cannot support this legislation. It is not well thought through. I agree completely that there are dairy farmers who are on their knees, who are considering the ultimate solution, and it is appalling and tragic, and I will fight every day for them. But this will not solve their problems, and what's worse of all, it gives them hope when it will not provide it.